Welcome to our deep dive on maximizing your flexible spending account using an early expense and exit strategy. We will explore how FSAs work, why the full annual election is available on January 1st, and how some people leverage this to cover significant healthcare costs early in the year. Then, we will cover the critical rules around the date of service and the runout period so you do not lose money. Next, we will compare benefits and risks, walk through timelines and examples, and close with a practical checklist. Finally, we will test your understanding with quick quizzes and summarize key takeaways. Here is the plan. First, we cover FSA basics. Next, we explain the early spend strategy and the date of service rule. Then, we clarify the claim's runout period. After that, we balance pros and risks, visualize with diagrams and a table, and provide a step-by-step checklist. Finally, we finish with short quizzes and a wrap-up. This information is for education only and is not legal, tax, HR, or financial advice. Always consult your plan administrator and your official plan documents. Submitting ineligible expenses or inaccurately reporting service dates is prohibited. With that established, we will proceed to the fundamentals. FSAs make the full annual election available on January 1st, even though you contribute each paycheck. Eligibility depends on the date of service. It does not depend on when the bill is issued or when you pay it. You must submit claims within your plan's runout period. With that foundation, let us examine the early spend strategy. The early spend strategy takes advantage of the fact that the full annual election is available on January 1st. Because contributions are deducted over the year, the plan advances the amount up front. As a result, the employee can cover legitimate early year medical bills even if they later leave the employer. However, the fundamental rule remains that eligibility depends on the date of service, not the billing or payment date. The example shows how a large portion can be reimbursed early, while contributions are comparatively small by the time of termination. This strategy must be used ethically, with valid documentation for services that occurred while you were covered. Next, we will balance the pros against the risks. On the benefit side, you gain immediate access to the full annual election, can cover significant early year costs, retain eligible reimbursements, and enjoy tax advantages. On the risk side, you face strict deadlines, and expenses are ineligible if the date of service is after your last employment day. Documentation must be complete and timely. Additionally, there is reputational and ethical risk if the strategy is misused. Now, let us visualize eligibility with a decision flowchart. This flowchart starts by asking if you have an expense. Then, it checks whether the date of service occurred while you were actively employed and covered. If not, the claim is not eligible. If it did, the next step verifies whether you have the proper documentation, such as an explanation of benefits or an itemized receipt. If documentation is missing, you need to obtain it before proceeding. If documentation is present, the final gate is whether you are within the plan's runout period. If you are beyond that period, the claim is forfeited. If you are within the deadline, you submit for reimbursement. Notice that the billing and payment dates do not affect eligibility. The claim's runout period is a plan-defined window, commonly 60 to 90 days after your last employment day. During this time, you may submit claims for services that occurred while you were still covered, even if the bill arrives later. If you miss the runout deadline, the claim is permanently forfeited. Therefore, verify exact dates with your plan administrator and set multiple reminders to ensure timely filing. Next, we will review a practical matrix of scenarios. This table shows typical cases. If the service occurs before your last day and you are active on that date, it remains eligible even if the bill arrives after you leave, provided you file by the runout deadline. If the service occurs after your last day, you are not eligible because you were not covered at the time of service. If you submit after the runout period, even for an otherwise eligible service, the claim is forfeited. When a bill arrives just before the deadline, it is still eligible as long as you submit by the runout date. Now, let us check your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: what determines whether an FSA expense is eligible for reimbursement? Option A, the date of service. Option B, the date you receive the bill. Option C, the date you pay the bill. Option D, your employer's approval after you leave. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is the date of service. If the service occurred while you were actively employed and covered, It is eligible. The billing date and the payment date do not determine eligibility. Question: after you leave your job, what primarily limits your ability to file claims? Option A, the claims run-out period. Option B, your last paycheck date. Option C, the provider's billing cycle. Option D, your new employer's FSA rules. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is the claims run-out period. That window establishes the absolute deadline for submitting documentation for services that occurred while you were covered. Question: when is the full annual FSA election amount typically available? Option A, January 1st. Option B, after your first paycheck of the year. Option C, after 6 months of contributions. Option D, after contributing 50% of your election. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is January 1st. FSAs make the full annual election available at the start of the plan year, even though contributions are deducted over time. Follow this checklist. First, confirm your plan's election amount, run-out period, and documentation requirements. Second, maintain itemized receipts and explanations of benefits with the date of service clearly shown. Third, ensure all spending occurs while you are covered, and note your last day of employment. Fourth, create multiple reminders. Fifth, submit claims promptly after you receive documentation. Sixth, if switching employers mid-year, verify whether the plan year changes. Seventh, keep copies of all submissions and responses. Finally, if anything is unclear, contact your administrator before the deadline. Next, we will visualize an action timeline. This Gantt chart lays out a sample year. Enrollment and election occur first in early January. Early eligible spending follows until early March. The last day of employment is a milestone mid-March, after which coverage ends. Documentation gathering spans from mid-March to mid-April. The run-out window, here shown as an example of 90 days from mid-March to mid-June, is the critical path. A final submission push occurs in the last 2 weeks to ensure nothing is missed. The exact dates will vary by plan and your actual termination date. Now, let us consolidate the key points. Remember these essentials. Eligibility hinges on the date of service. The full annual election is available on January 1st. The run-out period is a hard deadline and is often 60 to 90 days after employment ends. Submit early with complete documentation. Use the strategy ethically and confirm plan-specific rules. Here is a concise recap in Markdown form. First, the date of service drives eligibility, while billing and payment dates are supporting documentation. Second, if the date of service falls during active coverage, you may submit later as long as you file within the run-out period. Finally, the checklist confirms the 3 essential requirements. Next, we will wrap up. In summary, focus on the date of service and the run-out period. File early and track deadlines with multiple reminders. Keep meticulous documentation and verify your plan's specific rules. When uncertain, contact your plan administrator. Finally, let us close the video. Thank you for watching. If this was helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Share your questions or your FSA experiences in the comments so others can learn from them as well. See you in the next video.